What's up, Brollies? Today's video is a little bit different compared to our usual PC builds, desk setup tours, and gaming peripherals review, as we're taking a look at a relatively new smartphone. Now, I'm still kinda torn if I want to do smartphone reviews on a consistent basis here on our channel, because to be honest, the smartphone niche requires a deep pocket, and that is quite a challenge, especially for a small YouTuber like myself. Usually, I do smartphone reviews on our website only. But let me know in the comments below if you're interested, because personally, I'm all for it. I'm always open to different opportunities and content ideas. Anyways, luckily, our friends from Digital Walker generously sent the OnePlus 10 Pro, which was released earlier this year. I'm eager to share my thoughts with you, and there are a lot of details that I want to tackle, so let's get into it. So right here, we have the red packaging for the OnePlus 10 Pro, and what I have here is the one that is going to be available here in the Philippines via Digital Walker. This is the volcanic black variant with 12GB of RAM and 256GB of ROM, which retails for around 53,000 Philippine pesos. Inside the box, we have another accessory box that houses the paperwork, including some OnePlus stickers. We also have the SIM card ejector pin inside the personal note from the founder of OnePlus, and a nice and slim casing. Next, we have the OnePlus Pro smartphone itself, and underneath that, we have the massive 80 watts Super VOOC charger and the iconic OnePlus Red USB Type-C charging cable. Overall, the unboxing experience is really nice as expected from the brand. Now, the first thing that strikes me the most about the OnePlus 10 Pro is the distinctively slim form factor, and I'm kinda used to the width of the iPhone 13 Pro Max now, so this feels really different right out of the box for me. The bezels are very thin, even on the chin, which is awesome, and I also like the feel of the curved edges all around the smartphone. There's something to it that makes it really comfortable to hold. Here in front, we also have the 32-megapixel selfie camera with Sony IMX615 sensor and EIS. We also have here the earpiece that also doubles as a secondary speaker. And in terms of the display, we have a 6.7-inch Quad HD Plus 20.1:9 Fluid AMOLED display with up to 120Hz refresh rate. More on that later. And lastly, here in front, we have an in-display fingerprint sensor that thankfully is placed high enough that your thumb can press naturally while being able to support the phone properly. Now, on the left side, we have the volume rocker and a couple of antenna lines. And on the other side, we have the convenient mute switch, the power button, which is nicely positioned to be triggered by your thumb, and a couple of antenna lines as well. Up top, we have the same antenna lines and the secondary microphone. The frame is made out of aluminum. At the bottom, we have the primary speaker unit, a USB Type-C port, the primary microphone, and the SIM card tray that supports dual nano SIM cards. No SD card slot, and no 3.5mm port, unfortunately. I can find an IP rating on the OnePlus website, but the SIM card tray does have rubber ring. Looking at the back, which is made out of glass with Gorilla Glass 5 protection, we have this nice finish that I really like. It looks like it has a rough texture, but it's actually very smooth and nice to the touch. And definitely fingerprint resistant. However, I cannot say the same about the camera bump. As you can tell, it is super glossy. But at least the bump is relatively short and doesn't wobble that much when you lay the phone flat on a surface. In terms of the camera system, we have a 48-megapixel main camera with a Sony IMX789 sensor and an optical image stabilizer. We also have a 50-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera with a J-in-1 sensor, an 8-megapixel telephoto camera also with OIS, and a two-tone flash. Of course, you already know it, this is co-developed with Hasselblad. I have a lot of good things to say about the camera quality, but before that, let's discuss the rest of the features first. In terms of the user interface, since what we have here is the global version, we have Oxygen OS 12.1 based on Android 12. As expected, it is quite smooth and lightweight, and aside from Google Apps, I think the only third-party app pre-installed is Netflix. It is a fairly simple and clean operating system with a dedicated section for your personal widgets that you can toggle by swiping down from the upper right corner. Aside from that, you'll still have all the essential features baked inside Android 12. Now, some of the notable features that we have on this phone includes the 120Hz refresh rate that, thanks to the LTPO 2.0 technology, dynamically adjusts depending on your use case scenario or application demands. It can refresh as low as 1 Hz to save some battery for less demanding applications. Aside from that, we also have the option to choose our desired resolution or just set it to automatic, again to save some precious battery life. We also have the typical customization options that a lot of people enjoy with Android, including the always-on display that takes advantage of the AMOLED panel. We also have the option under the battery settings to increase performance if necessary, and a bunch of other nifty features baked in Android and Oxygen OS. Now let me just break down the rest of the specifications real quick so that you can have an idea of what to expect about the capabilities of the OnePlus 10 Pro. For starters, it is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor with an Adreno 730 GPU with 12GB of RAM and 256GB of internal storage. It also has the X65 5G chipset, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2 and NFC for connectivity. It has dual stereo speakers and 5000 mAh of battery with support for 80W Super VOOC charging technology. Aside from that, we also have the option to expand the RAM using the available internal storage space. So as you can tell, this flagship phone from OnePlus is definitely capable. Now let's finally talk about the display. Again, what we have here is a 6.7-inch Quad HD Plus 20.1:9 Fluid AMOLED display with up to 120Hz refresh rate and supports sRGB, P3 and 10-bit color spaces. It is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass Victus and has roughly around 525 pixels per inch density, and as you can tell, the image quality is really good. It has excellent viewing angles, vibrant colors, and deeper blacks thanks to the AMOLED panel, and also has substantial contrast and sharpness and produces overall high quality visuals. And with such a high resolution Quad HD Plus display, the icons and text are very crispy. Now the stereo speakers are also fairly good thanks to the additional audio output coming from the earpiece, and while it's not as loud and detailed as the primary speaker unit, it still provides that immersive stereo effect, and to be honest, you wouldn't even notice their difference unless you intentionally cover one of them.
Very neat Deepcool CK560 chassis and a bunch of new PC components from Deepcool. And today, I'm following that up with a full Deepcool desk setup tour to give you guys some idea that you can possibly apply to your own personal setups.
Moving on in terms of performance, by just simply using the phone on a daily basis, browsing through the user interface, opening multiple apps, and doing day-to-day tasks, you can definitely rely on this phone. It feels really smooth and responsive without any significant hiccups. I'll pop all the benchmarks that I ran on this phone, including Geekbench, 3D Mark, and PC Mark, and as you can tell, it pretty much maxed out on Slingshot and Slingshot Extreme with pretty good numbers across all the benchmarks that I ran. Now in terms of gaming, pretty much all the games I've played were very smooth even at maximum graphics settings and the highest frame rate available, while still staying relatively comfortable to the touch in terms of thermals, only peaking at around 39 degrees. The only game that I encountered some noticeable frame drops is of course Genshin Impact, which is not surprising as it is a very demanding mobile game. The default setting was medium, but honestly, for a smoother gaming experience, I'd rather keep it at low. Other than that, gaming on this phone is definitely exceptional, both in terms of performance and image quality. Now in terms of battery life, as per testing, I'm getting around 7 to 8 hours give or take via PC Mark Work 3.0 battery life benchmark, and even just using it on a daily basis, the battery life is really good and can last the entire day and more depending on how you use it and your settings. Charging is super fast thanks to the 80W Super VOOC charger, which can get it to full tank in less than an hour. And lastly, before we end this review, let's talk about the camera quality, and again, we have a 48MP main camera with a Sony IMX789 sensor and an optical image stabilizer. We also have a 50MP ultra-wide-angle camera with a J-in-1 sensor, an 8MP telephoto camera also with OIS, and a two-tone flash. As you can tell, the images look really good. The skin tones are close to natural depending on how the auto white balance perform in a particular scenario, but for the most part, the images look fairly natural and the dynamic range between shadows, midtones, and highlights are pleasantly balanced even though HDR is turned on. Usually, when you use HDR mode on a smartphone camera, they overcompensate, resulting in good-looking but relatively unnatural images. In this case, most of the images I took look closer to how it is in real life, which is pretty awesome and ready to be shared on social media without the need to further post-process it unless you want to add some artistic filters. Although of course it's not perfect, sometimes it tends to over-process the details, especially when it comes to leaves and something similar. The images also have deeper than usual contrast and are a little bit too sharp for my liking, which sometimes could result in crushed shadows and a little bit too busy details, but overall, again like I said, these are share-worthy and ready images out of the camera, and I'll take any of these over images with a natural saturation and dynamic range just to make them pop. As you can see, with a good amount of light, especially in outdoor situations, the images really look good if not better compared to some point-and-shoot cameras. And even indoors, as you can see, the images still look good, albeit with some noise around the edges and dark areas, and again, a little too much contrast. Selfies are also quite flattering, again with the close to natural skin tones, and the background blur or bokeh effect for the most part looks natural as well with better than usual edge detection. The video quality is also very good, especially partnered with the optical image stabilization, As you can tell, the footage is fairly smooth, which is good for vlogging purposes or general content creation. I even tried filming an overhead video, and I think for most people, especially casual content creators or beginners, this should suffice. The autofocus is also excellent, providing precise control over your subject, giving you tons of creative flexibility. Now, as much as I want to go over all the camera settings and other details, I think this video is already too long for you guys. But the important thing here is that you can shoot at 10-bit color and in HEIF and HEVC file formats to save space, and that you can also shoot in RAW using the Pro mode. For video, you can shoot 720p at 30 or 60 fps, 1080p at 30 and 60 fps, 4K at 30, 60 and 120 fps, and up to 8K but only at 24 fps. Other than that, everything else is pretty standard for most camera settings like night mode, filters, adjustable aperture, and others. Overall, if you're getting the smartphone for its camera system, I don't think that you'll be disappointed. All the lenses are usable from the ultra-wide angle lens down to the telephoto lens, including the selfie camera. Now let me know in the comments below if you're interested in a dedicated camera review for the OnePlus 10 Pro. If I can get enough interest from you guys, maybe we can make it happen. Now to conclude, the OnePlus 10 Pro is definitely a powerful flagship phone that is capable at all aspects, whether it is for casual media consumption, gaming, productivity and content creation, and everything else. All the hardware specifications and software integrations work all together to give you a reliable piece of technology that should aid you in your day-to-day digital lifestyle. Is it worth the price? Well, only you can tell depending on your preference in relation to your budget and if all your boxes were checked, given everything this phone has to offer. And there you have it guys, thank you for watching. Huge thanks to Digital Walker for sending this in. You can get this from their official website link below. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you like this, and see you next time. Have a great day guys, you're awesome.